It's probably a surprise to nobody that Five Nights at Freddy's is still getting scraped of information and lore after how many years, and with each installment of the game it seems like we learn more and more going forward, and yet there still seems to be quite a bit of things that people haven't been able to learn or been able to uncover. But hey, don't fret, for I have taken my inner Matt Pat and I'm here to give you 25 FNAF facts that I can guarantee you didn't know about. Starting with a pretty interesting one, did you know that the animatronics in Sister Location are based off the Three Wise Monkeys? Ballora is based off of See No Evil, Funtime Freddy is based off of Speak No Evil, and Funtime Foxy is based off of Hear No Evil, in which all of this is shown in their gameplay respectively. The original FNAF game was actually based off a lost project called Factories of Solitude. The game idea was lost in a forum in which Scott had found and had revived to make Five Nights at Freddy's as what we know today. It uses the same mechanics from the original game, like the hydraulic doors and the enemies moving around using cameras, with the main twist being that it's not in a factory and instead in a pizza location. Shadow Freddy is known as a pretty popular secret character, but nobody knows where he came from. However, after we learn about the Revenant, which is what the spirits use to control the animatronics, we were able to get a little bit more information. The Revenant has an effect called the After Image, in which if there's enough trauma endured into the spirit, it leaves a burned-in marking. This marking represented as a shadow left by Withered Freddy, who was known for having one of the more traumatic deaths. Speaking of the shadowy animatronics, Night 6 was supposed to only consist of these characters. However, it didn't really fit into the lore, so they decided to scrap most of the characters and leave characters like Shadow Freddy and Bonnie as small little secrets. Foxy is one of the only characters who is able to see through your FNAF disguise, though most people think it's due to the fact that he has a smarter AI. The answer more lies in his background as a pirate. Foxy was built in with custom spyglass lenses in his optics, which allows him to see a lot better than most of the other animatronics. Circus Baby's minigame is actually based off the Dairyman in the story The Fields, the Flowers, and the Frozen Delights. In the story, the Dairyman lures kids to his ice cream booth and you know the rest, which is almost a one-to-one with what happens in the Circus Baby minigame. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was actually supposed to be called Five Nights at Bonnie's. The reason for the last-minute switch was due to the fact of how popular FNAF games were at the time, and afraid of the fact that people might mistaking it as such, he decided to leave it as Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Rockstar Freddy was actually supposed to be known as Fast Shot Freddy in Five Nights at Freddy's AR. He was there to sell you out on the different bundles and specials that they had at the time. But since he didn't want him to originate from FNAF AR, he decided to wait till FNAF Pizza Simulator to have him as one of the characters alongside the other Rockstar animatronics. Lefty's AI in Pizza Simulator is almost all placebo. There isn't actually much of a way to have him go away, as it's more just chance of it happening, with the one exception being looking down the duct to make sure that he doesn't kill you. Along with Balloon Boy and Balloon Girl, there was actually one other balloon character named Balloon Transgender. They had the respective color palette but was unfortunately removed due to the fact of not being woke enough. During the release of Ultimate Custom Night, a lot of people wondered why there were so many characters that weren't added in the release. To put it simply, every character that wasn't added in the Ultimate Custom Night is not at all relevant to the story of FNAF. Along with the Crying Child and Cassidy, there is a third spirit that actually is inside Golden Freddy. This spirit is actually located in the brain, hence why we're not able to see it, and his name is Simon. Though most people think that Cassidy is the one who's in main control, she actually does everything that Simon says. Have you ever wondered why Withered Bonnie's eyes are red? Keep wondering. In FNAF World, there was actually files that hinted to a second version of the game. This actually came up in the interview that Scott had with Dako. Although it was never publicly released, there's actually hidden audio files that were found about it.
FNAF World 2? I mean, come on. Hard to be two FNAF Worlds, so it seems a little excessive, don't you think?
Five Nights at Freddy's Pizza Simulator was actually supposed to have a court minigame, kind of like Ace Attorney. Instead of writing off the lawsuits, you actually had to go to court and fight for them. Everyone knows that FNAF stemmed off of a rude comment that Scott got on one of his other games. But did you know that they actually named the phone guy after the same person? This was made out of pure spite and was the reason why Phone Guy ends up dying. Doey was actually supposed to be voice acted by Markiplier, but since they couldn't get a hold of him, they decided to use Michael Kovac as a substitute. Before FNAF was Five Nights at Freddy's, FNAF actually standed for Friends Never Abandon Friends. With the new Fnaf game The Mimic coming out, there was theories about who the Mimic was, and game theory had come out to say that the Mimic was actually the paper pals around Fnaf 1 through whichever game they were on. However, this is wrong, as the Mimic isn't taking the embodiment of a paper pal, but instead isn't taking the embodiment of the fan from all the Fnaf games. This ties into the fact of it being the only machinery that could ever actually mimic an actual animatronic, and with it being one of the only animate objects in most of the games. Freddy Fazbear was actually known as Freddy Fazbear, and was known for being one of the clan members of the Phase team. However, due to the fact that Scott was not given the clear to use this in his game, he decided to change it to Fazbear, and small hints of Freddy being a gamer was shown in Ultimate Custom Night with Toy Freddy. On the mobile version of the first Five Nights at Freddy's, there was actually one day where there was an extra character that was seen in the gameplay. No one was able to accurately identify what animal he was, but we all know that his name was George. Do you remember him? Let me know. Rockstar Foxy actually had some pretty big people online to voice act as him. Doggo was actually the first pick for this voice acting line, but he had stated that he hated FNAF at the time. This was then picked up by Markiplier, who said he would do it, but was too powerful when reading the lines, which was then picked up by Fusion Z Gamer, who wasn't able to cut the audio properly, which then got picked up by Corey Kenshin, but he wasn't in the studio at the time so they couldn't use him, which then got picked up by Dark Taurus, which wasn't able to read it because he doesn't talk, which then got picked up by 8-Bit Ryan, who wouldn't stop laughing, and Scott didn't like this so he dropped him as a candidate, which then got picked up by Sean from FGTV, but he wasn't born yet, which then got picked up by Oya, in which he wouldn't stop talking about how bad Sister Location was, which then was going to get picked up by MatPat, but they thought that he would try to get insider information about the game, and after all that failure, they weren't able to get a voice actor for Rockstar Foxy, making him one of the very few who needed one but couldn't get it. Vanny and Slenderman are actually siblings, confirmed by yours truly using the information that we have with their static ability and their teleportation. It makes them one and alike and is a reason why they both inherit the same abilities. One thing that a lot of people haven't noticed is that Golden Freddy quite literally is the answer to all the questions of the FNAF franchise. The better part of it is that he tells us this the entire time, with the countless times that he has to remind us that it's him, or it's me. He could be responsible for both the bite of 87 and the bite of 83. He could be the character that we play as in the first game, and probably the answer to the biggest mystery in the entire FNAF franchise. What lies inside the box? There has been so much speculation around this thing, and no one has been able to really pinpoint what it is. But using my deep dive into every single game with countless hours, I think I have the true answer. The true contents of the box is the friends we made along the way. How far we have came as a community to go over all these years. So much has happened in the franchise, and so much is more to come. And it could not be possible without all the support from everybody in the entire community of FNAF. Everyone plays a part in the end, and the true answer to what was in there was the friendship, the love between all of us.